Please welcome to the stage the Master of Ceremonies, Laura Evans Manitas.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So glad you're here for our afternoon block, which begins now with several different discussions and really insightful programming. So again, very glad to have you all with us. This next session, Growth in Latin America and the Caribbean, Challenges and Opportunities. This is in partnership with CAF, Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, and they will be discussing the key drivers of the economic growth in the Latin America and Caribbean region. And we're going to highlight how cross-sectoral partnerships can ensure long-term prosperity. Please welcome to the stage Andrea Bernal and Alejandra Botero.
Good morning still? Yes, good morning. Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Our region, Latin America, has been for decades a land of opportunities. Some opportunities have been taken, others have been passed, and others have not even been seen. It's a region full of opportunities with infinite stories of strength and creativity, stories of people. A region that does not stop, that transforms to face adversity. It's also a diverse and a very, very complex region with different needs and challenge. Alejandra Botero of CAF is here with us today. Alejandra, how does CAF tailors its development strategies to address the specific needs of such a different and diverse region with such different countries? Welcome.
Thank you, Andrea. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you, Concordia. Thank you, all of you, for coming here and listening to this, I think, very challenging first question, actually. I'm going to start a little bit to talk about what the advantages of the region are, because I think sometimes, we were talking about yesterday of how this land or this continent sometimes is like the land of the lost opportunity. It's always like the next big thing that's going to come, and then growth never comes. But I think we're at a standpoint right now where it's especially interesting because of the biodiversity and the green energy transition. So I think the fact that we have 40% of the world's biodiversity, that most of our energy matrix is green, that we hold 60% of the world's lithium reserves and 40% of the copper production, which are key for the global transition. I think are aspects that hold us at a window, if we really take advantage of it, to spur that growth, because we have the other advantage is in terms of stability. We're one of the regions that at this moment, unfortunately for the rest of the world, but right now, we don't have a war going on. We have relatively macroeconomic stability. Lots of countries still have fiscal rules, have an independent central bank. I mean, in terms of general, we are a serious economic region. We have potential in terms of agribusiness. We hold 30% of the world's future arable land is in Latin America. So I think in terms of economic stability, a young population, and the whole green opportunities, there are lots of advantages. However, there's a flip side to this, which are the challenges that we have as a region. And I would say the biggest challenge, especially coming from the perspective of Development Bank, is poverty and lack of growth. So we made really great progress in terms of poverty. In the early 2000s, we halved the poverty. 1 out of 2 Latin Americans was poor by 2000. Around the mid-2000s, it was 25%. But that poverty has stagnated right now. And we really haven't done, it slightly increased, then came the pandemic, it came down. And that goes hand in hand with the fact that we haven't really grown. We're one of the countries that have the most sluggish economic forecast. So think about it from a development bank. We're thinking, OK, we're not growing. We still have a big poverty. We're one of the most unequal countries in the world. But we have an opportunity in terms of the climate transition, which has been talked about a lot here, and in terms of the diverse and the biodiverse assets that we have. So what we have done as a development bank is we set up a multi-year strategy to see how we can combine how we can help our member countries do this transition, but without leaving to the side the social programs and the social indicators. So just a little bit for those. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
For everybody who doesn't know CAF, CAF is a bank that has been around for over 50 years. We have 23 member countries. And the interesting thing about CAF is that we work sort of like a cooperative. All our member countries are donor and lender countries. So we don't have a country that's telling us where to invest. All of us have to do a plan together. That's challenging because you always have short-term problems in Latin America, but it's also very interesting because we all have to help each other out. So 2 or 3 years ago, the countries got together and gave us a $7 billion capitalization. Said, okay, we're going to give you this influx of money to give you a sense of the dimensions. We have a $35 billion portfolio, so $7 billion is important in terms of proportions. And they said, yes, but you have to go hand in hand with us in the green transition, but in sustainable growth and inclusion. So what we've done is we developed a multi-year strategy with each of the countries so that 40% of our approvals are green, and we focus on innovative products and instruments to make sure that we have that green transition that happens, but hand in hand with helping of course, the economic indicators and the social indicators.
With everything that you tell us about CAF doing in the region and how it has been like in an upper side, the CAF Development Bank, what are CAF's efforts right now in the region, the eyes of CAF specifically in the region? Can you tell us some examples that you're doing in specific countries?
Yes, of course. No. So we've always been sort of a traditional infrastructure bank, which is actually like one of the biggest competitivity gaps that we have in the region. So most of our projects right now have to do with infrastructure. For example, Puente Limón, which is like, especially infrastructure projects that bridge between countries. We do a lot of infrastructure, a lot of water and sanitation, a lot of social projects, but we go into more innovative sides, like for the first time we're doing a telemedicine project in El Salvador. And then also this emphasis on the green projects, I think, is very interesting, not only in terms of strictly green projects, like, for example, reforestation projects with the private sector, or debt swaps and guarantees with different governments, but also incorporating the green aspect in terms of urban development. So a big sort of area that we're doing right now is urban mobilization, urban transport, and what we try to do to reach that 40% objective is to find the green in every project we do.
Now, you have talked about 3 challenges that CAF has in Latin America. Which ones are those challenges, and how are you addressing them? Because you're talking about technology, not only infrastructure now,
yes,
and you're also talking about security. With security comes investment, and also green energy. So what are those 3 great challenges, and how is CAF addressing them in such a diverse region as Latin America is?
Oh, perfect. Thank you. That's a great question, Andrea. Well, I'm going to start by the last, which is the green energy transition. We're Latin American, and we all work together. And of course, a green transition in the Caribbean is very different from a green transition in Argentina, or in Peru, or even in Colombia, where I'm from. So we really have to go hand in hand with having the green transition, but in a way that we don't leave the social investment behind. So something interesting in our case is we consider gas transition, how do you call it, a transition fuel as well. We know that it's going to, it has to happen, it has to stop, but we know that a lot of our countries depend on gas and fossil fuels for exports as well. So we help tailor projects so that we do that green transition in terms of the alignment of each of the countries, but also incorporating gas projects. And that's something that was a challenge at the beginning when we were defining the strategy, but I think it's something that we can see now in terms of energy security is very important for our region and for the world. So in that case.
Go ahead.
Sorry, and then in terms of the technology that you were saying,
yes,
we think that's probably the key enabler for anything. So, I mean, I don't know if most of you know, but probably the investment in education is the biggest investment that a country can do in terms of bridging the poverty gap. And you can't do investment in education without digital access. Today, 70% of the region has digital access, 30% doesn't. So working in, of course, more innovation, but also bridging that digital gap is one of our key priorities. And then finally, as you were saying, in security, really, and when you think of like long-term trust in foreign investment, we're starting, and then that's where partnerships come in a lot, because it's a joint partnership that we're doing with OIE, OAS, with the IDB, to see how we can tackle really security, citizen security, and governance issues in the region to be able to tackle it as a global country, as a regional problem, because it's not really a problem of a country-by-country basis.
Now, we've talked in Concordia a lot about integration, hemispheric integration, United States and Latin America, integration, integration, integration. I think we've heard a lot of this word in these past days. However, this integration cannot be done alone just by multilaterals or by governments or just private sector. We talk about the need, the important need of the private sector to be part of these changes in the region. How is CAF working with the private sector, and where are they needed the most? We have a lot of private sector here.
Thank you, and that's the perfect ending to this 15-minute conversation, because definitely these challenges that we talked about, we can't do it on our own. Not the development banks, not the governments in themselves, not the private sector, and certainly not philanthropy. We all have to join forces together. And I think that in terms of innovative financial instruments and how we can actually bridge that risk gap so that the private sector can invest in projects that can be interesting, especially in the opportunities, in the green opportunities, in the energy opportunities, in the biodiversity opportunities, is where we're putting sort of the focus. So for example, if we talk about blended finance products, co-financing products, all those instruments that can really help bring in different sources to make a project real and to reduce the loan margin or the placement is something that we're focusing on. So we're doing a lot of blended and co-financing projects with the private sector. We're also developing other green and social finance instruments. So we've seen a boom in terms of green bonds. We want to also push that in terms of social bonds as well. And all types of instruments that can bring up loans and sort of funds that are interested in the green transition. There's lots of European development banks that are interested in funding the green transition all over the world, and that's where we have very attractive sort of perspectives in Latin America. And then finally, we can't talk about integration without talking about infrastructure, and that's where public-private partnerships really play a role. Not only in being able to develop and structure big infrastructure projects that are still needed in the region, but also in operating and maintaining them. So that's also where it's a focus that we do. Obviously in like the typical roads and infrastructures, but also we are starting to expand in terms of schools, in terms of hospitals, in terms of other types of partnerships that are public-private.
Can we have 2 minutes still. Can we have a call of attention to the people that are here, also the private sector, philanthropists, NGOs, to work with multilateral, especially with CAF and investment in the region? What would be your call of action?
Thank you. That's great. We have, with that 7 billion capital investment that all 23 member countries gave to us, they said, yes, we're going to give it to you, but we really have to increase the work that we do with the private sector. Right now, our portfolio is 90% sovereign, 10% non-sovereign, and we want to increase it much more, and it's actually one of the mandates that we have. We have these instruments that we talked about, but we'd really like to lend out a hand and for you to consider us as a partner for Latin America, because this is something, these development goals are not, it's something that we all have to do together, and they really have to go hand in hand. We can't talk just about how much dollars we invest in the region without how much impact this is going to have, because as we all know, in terms of poverty and in terms of their transition, we have to do an energy transition, take advantage of the biodiversity and all the other interesting things that we have in Latin America, but with a development side. So we can help de-risk, we have new financial instruments, and count on CAF as a partner for the private sector.
So we can consider Latin America the land of opportunities.
Yes, all together.
Thank you so much, Alejandra Botero from CAF here today. Thank you.